Believe in the fight game.
Hello, everyone. This is Charles Yao with Believe in the Fight Game on the Believe Podcast Network, Los Angeles' #1 sports podcast network, the only place with a show for every team and every sport in LA and more. We believe in sports. Do you believe? Hey, how's it going? Believe in the Fight Game listener. This is Charles once again. And for the next 3 episodes, I have a really cool setup in featuring a 14-year-old fighter, her coach, and her father that compromises of this whole it takes a village to raise a fighter. The first episode I'm going to feature is Stephan Gristina. This is Trinity Pun's coach. Stephan Gristina is a brown belt that trains out of Renzo Gracie Middletown, and I find him to be one of the more interesting people out there that needs to be featured in the Jiu-Jitsu game. Because for some reason, if you train in Jiu-Jitsu, you are almost admonished if you're out of the zone of eating acai bowls, being only plant-based, or if you don't consume alcohol once in a while. But I tend to be more affectionate towards the people who are actually real in Instagram and who also have character, where they enjoy their life, where they train enough and indulge once in a while to consume really good whiskey. This guy, I feel, is like one of the more balanced individuals that I've spoken and interviewed before. His Instagram is _Gristina_BJJ. That's SGRISTINA_BJJ. And he also manages another Instagram account called Burgers and Butt Scoots, which is all tied into Jiu-Jitsu. So part of the whole ecosystem to Trinity Pun, who I'm going to feature, is Coach Stephan, her father John, and then I'll eventually play the interview with Trinity. But in the meantime, here is the awesome brown belt Stephan Gristina from Renzo Gracie Middletown.
Hello.
Coach, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I know you're a busy guy.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Cool. Before anything else, I wanted to pick your brain.
Uh-huh.
What did you think about the InNOut Burger when you went out here to California?
No, the InNOut Burger was awesome. First one ever. I decided to go 4x4 animal style, and it really blew my expectations out of the water. I had them downplayed to me actually by somebody. They're like, "Oh yeah, I tried them. They're not great," and I was like, "Oh, okay." But for fast food burgers, they're pretty damn good.
Right. Well, was that person a local to LA, or was it?
No, it was somebody that went to go visit, and they were like, "Oh, they weren't that good."
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception with InNOut is even with the comparison to Shake Shack, because I feel like Shake Shack, which is what New York seems to be the barometer for. It seems like a lot of people think like it's gourmet, where Shake Shack I feel tends to be more on the gourmet side, and like what you typed on, what you put on your Instagram, it's like, hey, for fast food, this is pretty good,
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. Shake Shack's got that like fast casual kind of thing going, and InNOut's just straight up fast food. Like it's like if I had to compare it to something, it's in the McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, and it blows all of them out of the water. So it's like if I had to have that one in my town, in opposed to a McDonald's, a Wendy's, or a Burger King, yes, hell yes.
And I'm glad you went with the animal style 4x4, so you went straight to off book, which is cool.
Oh yeah, I watch a bunch of YouTube videos on burgers. I know like the secret menu stuff, and I know that when I went there, I had to do something. I'm not a fan of pickles, so I requested no pickles, but I got the extra sauce and all the other stuff that comes with animal style. So
yeah, and how'd you get into? Here's the reason why, Stephan, Coach Stephan. I just came from...
You can just call me Stephan.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I just came from Asia, and there's a growing faction of food consumers who train in jiu-jitsu, and they're both subcultures, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it was completely interesting to me to find a brown belt from, a legendary school like Renzo Gracie. And then, oh my God, this dude's into food, specifically burgers. Now, I saw some posts on Hibiki, and which I was like, all right, I like this dude already, like straight out.
Yeah.
I've been lately, the last 3-4 years, I've tried the various amounts of whiskeys, but Hibiki, as far as for Japanese and Asian whiskeys, Hibiki's like my joint.
It's so good. It's one of the first Japanese whiskeys that I could drink without putting some ice in it. And, I was blown away. That bottle that I had in that picture didn't last 2 weeks. Granted, I didn't pay for it. A friend of mine gifted it to me, which was awesome. But if I paid for it still, I don't even know if I'd be able to hold myself back from finishing it that fast. It's so good.
It's still, I would say, I don't know if you feel this way, and just check me, because it seems like you consume at a wider tier than I do, but it seems like it's still kind of underground in the whiskey consumer scene because everyone's still not embracing Japanese whiskey. Am I correct or incorrect?
It's a little bit on the rise right now. A lot of people are getting into it right now. It was kind of, seen as something different, and people didn't quite understand it. But within the Scotch consumer specifically, we started getting into that. I'm a Scotch guy. I'm not really big on bourbon and stuff like that, but I got into Scotch, and it's very similar because in the early 1900s, the Japanese actually learned how to make whiskey from the Scots. So it has a similar makeup. It's the way that they distill it and all that is the way that the Scots do it. So it has a similar taste and consistency as Scotch.
Any non-Asian Scotch that you prefer? Do you have like a tier, like your top 2, top 3?
Oh yeah, my favorite by far, Lagavulin 16. That's my bread and butter. I'll go to that. A little on the expensive end, but
sure.
I've always got a bottle hanging around in case I want some. Other than that, I guess my next favorite might be Talisker. It's a good one. It might not be a space out. I don't remember. It's I don't know what region it's from actually. I gotta look into that. But Talisker is definitely a great one. And those are definitely my 2 go-tos. I keep a bottle of Talisker at my girlfriend's house, and I keep the Lagavulin at my house. So either way, I'm good and set.
How did you get into this food scene? Because for the listening audience, Coach has another Instagram account. If you want to follow him at Gristina _BJJ. But if you want to follow his other account, it's at burgers _and spelled out AND _ scoots.
That's correct. I wanted to do just the end as the ampersand, but it doesn't let you do that. Spell it out. I started that maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe. I don't remember how long ago at this point, but it just started as me and my friends. We would always go out, and I would always get some crazy burger after training, and I was like, I just want to take pictures of these burgers and post them. People like, yeah, it's a great idea. We started it. A couple of my friends were really enthusiastic about it. They wanted to go get burgers all the time after training, and we take a picture. And then I was like, you know what? I go out. I do I go to a bunch of seminars from these different high profile guys. I think it has potential to do something, at least interesting.
And I feel like with the sophistication, and I'm not segging towards jiu-jitsu yet, but there's a growing scope of intelligent people who like food, who like whiskey, or if not, they're into so many other consumable hobbies that's growing. So I was like, you know what? I have to interview this coach because I seem to gravitate more to people like that than the uber hardcore acai or die. And no disrespect to those cats. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No disrespect to those cats.
No, for sure. It's interesting because I have some really good friends in the jiu-jitsu scene, and that, like, it's also another growing part of it where it's vegetarians, and it's surprising to see how many are vegetarians and vegans. And the ones that I'm friends with for the most part aren't very like the in-your-face vegans, but I respect them for their decisions, and they don't seem to mind my burger posts all the time. So yeah, it's a respect through jiu-jitsu that makes it interesting.
Are you at a point where with food, does that balance the piece of pie to your life? Or is this like more like, I eat bad once in a while? Or how do you balance between that whiskey burger affection?
Yeah, that's where it becomes a little bit tighter sometimes. I'll have a weekend like I did in California where I'm eating everything that's put in front of me because it was California. I had to try a bunch of different places. I didn't even get to try the Mexican food out there, and so that just means I got to go back. But all these burgers, they add up, and my training sometimes isn't always enough to counteract those calories. So I gotta start dieting for a week or two, and you'll see less posts on the burger page then. But for the most part, I tend to maintain as long as I keep it to a good amount of burgers versus good food during the week.
Yeah, next time you're out here, text me. Either I can take you or I can just direct you. There's like 2-3 burger spots, but also like Vice has done a feature on a couple of like carnitas and Mexican food trucks out here. I'll be happy to roll with you, or I'll just direct you to these spots. Let's
do both.
Yeah, for sure, man. Absolutely. But now to you, even deeper, more into, are you originally from New York?
Yeah, I was born and raised in New York. Grew up in the Bronx till I was 8, and then I moved up to where our gym, where Trinity and I train at in Middletown, is located. I'm from Monroe, New York. People not familiar with the area might know the Woodbury Commons is close to there. That's where I'm from.
Okay, and then how'd you get into, I always don't assume it's just jiu-jitsu is the first love, but how'd you get into martial arts?
So I wrestled most of my life. I started wrestling around 3rd, 4th grade, and from there it was kind of like a touch and go kind of thing. I tried out for a team in 7th grade, and I didn't like it, so I kind of just stopped. And then high school, I got back into it, doing JV for a couple of years, and then I was varsity my senior year, and then a cocky little 10th grader beat me out for my spot. We had a wrestle off for it, and he got the better of me. But I had a couple of varsity matches. But then, fast forward 6 years later, I think my friend, he wanted to go. He was training at the gym, and he's like, "Hey, you guys got to try jiu-jitsu with me tonight." And I was like, "Can't we just watch a movie? I don't really feel like doing anything." I was kind of lazy at this point. I didn't really want to do anything with my life. And then I got on the mats with him, and of the 3 of us that went that night, I'm the only one that's still training here 7 years later. But I fell in love that night. It reminded me of the wrestling room, and I was just hooked right away. It definitely caught me, and I was in.
How did the journey go to training? This was at Henzo's right away?
No, I'm in Renzo Gracie in Middletown.
Right.
Right now, what I do is I commute to the city on Mondays and train in the morning, and I come back here and I teach up here. And, it's kind of like a little commuting to get some training in there, and then also training here, teaching a little bit. It's, a split kind of schooling now that I have.
Okay. And did you, and I don't mean this in a political put down way, what was the difference in training with a Henzo based academy?
Well, I've always been Henzo based. It's always been Henzo with me.
I apologize, Steph. Stephan. I meant between HQ and
Oh,
Middletown.
and
Is there a
the one up
difference?
in Middletown?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. The the roles you're gonna get are gonna be tougher. You're gonna get more consistent, tough roles. The guys up here in Middletown, they're tough. They definitely are, and I teach them and I get them to try to beat me up. But it's definitely a level above when you go into like a Danaher class and you train with those guys. They just you're gonna get your ass kicked either way. But for the most part, I'm training hard and I'm getting it all done on both sides of it. Middletown, we've got tough guys. In the city, you get even tougher guys, but that's not to take away from what the Middletown guys can do.
Right. And are you still working in production and shipping as a manager? Or are you just strictly on jiu-jitsu now?
No, I'm definitely still working full time. I negotiated. My boss is also a black belt. He's trains with us over in the gym. Our business is actually located right next to the gym, and he did that on purpose so we could just easily walk right over to training right after. But I negotiated with him to have Mondays off and work 4 10-hour days so I could get that training in the city, and makes the commuting a lot easier without killing myself.
Now, did you get your boss into jiu-jitsu, or was he already into jiu-jitsu when you...
No. He had been training for maybe 12 years when I met him. He started training up here when the gym opened because he'd been training forever. He was waiting for a place to open up around here. And he definitely has mentored me. His name's Brian Schutzer. He's a great, mentor. He's a great boss. So he's been there with me since I started training. It's, been a long road, and he's been there for it.
Not a lot of people would be that lenient where it's like, you know what, man, go ahead, take Mondays off.
No, yeah. That's why I really appreciate him for that. He definitely understands what I want to do with my life going forward, and he's very receptive to that. He actually owns a gym down in Hoboken called Hoboken Fight Club. It's Henzo affiliated and Shootabox affiliated, actually.
Oh, so there's a lot of skulls getting cracked there with the shooter box.
Oh yeah.
Stand up.
Luis Azaredo is the instructor there. He's a big shooter box guy. He fought in Pride and Bellator and stuff like that.
So I'm looking at your Instagram post, and if I'm correct, it seems like the percentage seems to skew more towards you as a no-gi guy. Is that correct, do you think?
Typically these days, yeah. I still train gi for sure, and gi is always going to be fun for the collar chokes and all that. But for the most part, my training is mostly no gi. It's just been skewed that way.
Is that mentality based out of just interest, or is it more? Do you see it more practical? Do you see the gi as the discipline, martial aspect, and the no-gi, the practical, competitive juice? How do you see both?
I see both as, necessary for growth, but I think no-gi is definitely where the money and the competition is. And, it's definitely where you need to be training. And all of my competitions that I've lost, for the most part, have been by heel hooks. So I definitely want to be training where that's something I'm going to have to defend more. So that's why I've been focusing more on the no-gi. But gi, I still love it. It's still fun. My last competition was actually a gi competition. And it was, I came out, I had 1 win, 1 loss. And then I wound up getting second, but it was still good.
Okay, because I from what I'm noticing, because I live in, Los Angeles, California, it seems like people who are older, I'm 44 years old, turning 45, so a lot of us seem to tend to gear towards gi because it seems like it's less injurious.
Yeah, it's slower paced.
Do you see that as a stamped like method of thinking? Like, hey, I'm older, I should just train in the gi. What are your thoughts about that?
That's an interesting way to look at it, because now that I'm thinking about it, in my Noogie classes that I teach, it's not a lot of the older guys. A lot of the older guys tend to lean towards the gi. I never thought about it in that aspect, but I think they do like the slower pace of it, the grips, and the being able to fight more with holding people in place and using them to not using like the collars and the grips to kind of manipulate, and opposed to having to be squirmy and fast and moving underneath your opponent really in a interesting ways.
Okay. Now, belt by belt, I don't know how much time you can give me, because I'm really naturally curious about your journey. What was the difference from blue to purple?
So blue belt, I really opened me up to realizing that this is more difficult than I thought it was going to be. My white belt journey being a wrestler was like, okay, I'm beating up all these other white belts. It was a new gym, so everybody was white belts, and I was kind of like, I had my wrestling game to help me. And then blue belt, when the purple belt started turning it up on me, I was like, oh my God, this is a whole different thing. And I started trying to work my guard more. I saw people pass me up that were previously behind me. I was getting worried that, I wasn't working on the right things. And it made me like focus a lot more. And then purple belt, it was kind of more of a competition phase for me. I was definitely competing a lot more. I was doing better in competition at purple belt than I was at blue belt. And I felt really confident, and I got a lot more developed of my game. And it was just a time where I was finding who I was going to be in jiu-jitsu, what I really wanted to do with it, and just where this journey was taking me.
Okay, because in purple recently, Jean-Jacques Machado was on the Joe Rogan pod. Well, I can't say recently. I think it's been a good year and a half. And he felt like once you're at purple, you are now part of the elite in jiu-jitsu. So your journey from purple to brown, how do you feel about that statement? Is it not that it's incorrect, but what was your feeling of difference from purple to brown?
It's weird. I thought it would be a much bigger moment for me than it was. Not to say that it wasn't a big moment,
sure,
but I still I felt like I hadn't been progressing, and I'm like, we all go through those struggles where it's like, what am I even doing? What, I feel like I'm getting smashed by blue belts. Like, sure, they're like crazy good wrestlers, but like I shouldn't be having to fight for my life against the blue belt and like all this other stuff. And then you're making excuses to yourself. Oh, I was tired that day and all this other crap. And then to just, have it happen, it's like, oh, I guess I was doing better. Somebody noticed, and it opened me up a little bit to me having to take on that role of being a brown belt in the school that I'm at. There's not many of us. There's like a few brown belts, but it was definitely, I needed to start being a brown belt, start being more of a leader, because when I was a purple belt, even though I was instructing, I was, kind of relaxed, not really pushing anybody. And now I'm like, all right, this is, I considered brown belt more of an elite than purple belt, I'd say. Sure. Purple belt, I felt like I was kind of just like a kid, as far as jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu journey, I still felt like I was a kid. I felt like if being a 18-year-old is being a purple belt, I feel like being a brown belt's like being like 25. You're really an adult. Even though 18 you're an adult, brown belt, you're really an adult, and you need to get your shit together.
Wow. Because it seems like you were already competing at purple, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, no, I've seen you videos of you as a white belt competing already. So you've been competing all that time, but it seems like from your experience, a lot of it has to do as duty as a senior member of the academy in school.
Really, the competition, I'm trying to encourage other people to do it. And I know if they don't see someone who they look up to doing it, they might not do it. You know, I want to encourage more people to compete. Like, I've got a few blue belts that are timid about it, a couple purple belts that have never done it before but are thinking about it, and some who have done it before that, you know, are just worried, like, oh, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get smashed. I'm like, it doesn't matter. And, like, you know, I've lost plenty of competitions. I'm like, I go out there, I get smashed. I'm back out there another time. You can't let, you know, that scare you from testing yourself, and also just you discover new things about yourself. You discover new things about your game. You discover new things about jiu-jitsu when you compete, and you meet some pretty awesome people. I've made a lot of friends in competition. You know, I competed against Brian McLaughlin. He owns a school up in Poughkeepsie. He's a crazy good black belt out there. He was actually on the Ultimate Fighter at one point, and I was just like, I met him. We became friends, and since then I go up, I train with him all the time. He's an awesome guy.
From your observation, you know how there's Jean-Jacques Machado to Eddie Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see things that John Danaher picked up from Renzo, like attitude-wise or movement-wise? Like, you know, Jean-Jacques, because, you know, he has amniotic disease where he doesn't have, like, he barely has a thumb and a pinky on one hand.
Mm-hmm.
So he developed, like, the over-under sweep, butterfly hooks and all that. And that's what Eddie Bravo predicated from his learning. Do you see things that are both either physical, if not philosophical, from Renzo to Danaher that Danaher picked up?
Yeah, that's a hard observation to make. They definitely are completely different personalities in my observation.
Right.
But, you know, Danaher definitely, he's studied a lot of different games, and he's brought it all together. And that's not to say, obviously, he's learned from Renzo. He's, you know, under Renzo, and he definitely developed a good amount of his game from that, I'm sure. But the stuff he teaches and the stuff he passes on, you know, you see from all these other different high-level competition winners like Marcelo Garcia and others like that. He takes a bit of everything and he makes it into his own flavor, I would say.
Maybe this is a question from your observation from Renzo, from Danaher, and for you as a coach. If it's a hobbyist versus a competitor, do you differ in your teaching style? Does it remain the same? What's different, or if it's the same?
For me, I definitely try to approach it the same. If there's something important for competition, I'll add it to the information I'm saying as I'm teaching. I'll be like, oh, if you're in competition, you're going to want to make sure you hold side control for 3 seconds, you know, get the points, whatever, or whatever else is applicable to the competition. But, like, I know the guys the hobbyists don't care about that, so I don't really focus too much on it, you know?
Do you ever spot talent and you go, I know you're a hobbyist, but did you ever, in your teaching experience, had to, like, when I say dude, I mean for both genders, like, dude, you should really get on the mats and compete, man?
I mean, I don't try to push people, except for my girlfriend. She's really good. I want her to compete more, but, you know, she's a little intimidated by the scope of what competition can be. But she also doesn't know how good she is for her levels, you know, being a blue belt. But I think she'd do very well. You know, there's a couple guys that I've spotted in the gym, and I'm like, look, you know, you do really good in competition. And then, like, you know, I have connections with different organizations. So I'm like, oh, if you guys want a super fight, I could try to set that up for you, something else. So like, maybe they don't want to do a whole tournament because that's a little more intimidating in some ways, even though super fights like a little more focused. So you can't push people, I feel, because it'll just turn them away more, especially if they lose. But if you think they're going to do well, just let them know.
The food's there if you want to eat it. You don't have to eat it.
Yeah, I'd say that, make the food enticing, make it smell good, and they'll come.
We're about to wrap up, and I really thank you for your time. But do you have an idea of your end goal yet? Do you eventually want to coach and teach at either Renzo Academy, or open up your own school? Are you soulfully connected to where you want to maintain your working gig and just keep this as a side soulful endeavor?
No, my goals are definitely to open up a gym eventually. We'll see where down the line that happens, but it's definitely like this is what it's going to be. It's jiu-jitsu for sure. I'm going to be teaching and doing all that for life.
Thanks for tuning in to the show, and please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. We're also available on your favorite directories aside from iTunes, such as Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and TuneIn. You can find us at Believe.com. That's BLEAVE.com. And Believe Podcasts on social media. Now, if you want to get at me personally, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Plug12. That's PLUGONETWO. Hit me up and I'll read your questions or maybe even have you on the show. Believe in the fight game.